Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Path to Reason. I'm Cindy Plaza, and tonight we're going to talk about critical thinking again, but this time we're going to focus more on what's necessary outside and in completion with critical thinking. So before I do that, I will explain again what I mean by critical thinking, because a lot of people mean different things when talking about that. And I'm going to refer myself to Robert Ennis. He's a psychologist who is very, very specialized in critical thinking. I will put his papers in the description of the video. And his vision of critical thinking is that it's a set of mental postures and technical tools that help us find the truth in the world that surrounds us. So mental posture is some kind of reflex that you need to acquire and then train in order to trigger either a way of thinking or a technical tool or anything like that that will help you go analyze the element that triggered it. So let's say, for example, that you are presented with an argument, and so you need to have this trigger that says, okay, how do I evaluate arguments? Okay, there's something called logic for that. So I'm going to look for logic and see and apply it to this argument and see if it works. If you are presented with the scientific statement, then you will trigger the attitude of understanding and verifying the scientific method and see if this claim is or can be verified by the scientific method. And so you have several mental postures like that. Skepticism is one of them, intellectual honesty, and you have a few others. Then you have the tools, technical tools, which are usually procedures. Technical procedures you can apply to something and to get the result in the end. So science is one of them. Epistemology is another one. Logic, as I said. So these two sets allow us to verify anything that comes to us and make sure, or at least try to make sure, to know if it's true. So this is only half of what we need to make sense of the world around us, because we need at least some basic understanding and basic knowledge to, for example, if you want to build an argument, logic tells us that a syllogism is two or more premises and one conclusion. The premises are what we know, and the conclusion is what we want to learn. And so using this method, we can build knowledge by having a small set of things we know at first, and then building more and more complex arguments to get more and more knowledge. But we need to have at least some basic knowledge in the first place, because if we don't, then there's nothing to build arguments on. Science is the same. We need to understand the scientific method to apply it. And so, hi, Cat the Humanist, and hi, Consider This. Thanks for being here. So, yeah, in my mind, rational thinking is what we should aim. It's the idea that we want to think rationally as much as possible uh, in every situation that requires it, because there are some situations where we don't want and we don't need critical thinking, where we don't need to think critically, where we can and sometimes have to follow our emotions, because we're human and we have psychology very much based on emotions. So in some cases we can just follow our emotions. But in some other cases, like who I'm going to vote for, how I'm going to treat people, and all these things, we need to apply some reason to define how we act and what's true and what's not. And so to achieve this goal, we have those two um, complementary things like the yin and yang, which is knowledge and critical thinking. They're both sides of the same coin, because knowledge helps you build reasonings based on your critical thinking skills, and it helps you also improve those skills. But critical thinking also helps you sort out this knowledge we have in our mind, and some of it is not true, because we've all learned things that were not true, either because the person that taught us that thing was wrong, or because our knowledge as a species evolves over time, and sometimes we realize that things we thought we knew um, are not the way we thought they were. So they are both very complementary, and you cannot, in my opinion, you cannot have one without the other. So of course it's much easier to teach critical thinking as a set, as a complete thing, because knowledge is so wide and so and it grows every day with what we discover, and so we cannot teach knowledge as one block. However, there are some aspects I really think we should teach in the same time as we teach the first elements of critical thinking. In at a very young age, I would say 5, 6 years old, we can start teaching some of the components of critical thinking, especially the mental postures, skepticism, and intellectual honesty. These things can be taught very young, and in the same way, I think one thing that leads to a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of bad reasonings and a lot of errors everywhere is our collective misunderstanding of how the human mind works. Because in debates, especially religious debates, we very often hear the sentence, "I chose to believe X." So sometimes it's just a phrase, but very often people think they actually can choose to believe something. And with what we know of human psychology, we know that's not true. We know that when we are presented an idea or a statement or anything, our internal epistemology decides in a way whether this claim or this information is acceptable, and then if it is, then we believe it, and we attribute a degree of variation of acceptance to this claim, depending on the claim itself, depending on the context. Like, for example, if you are having a discussion where we are joking with other people, you know that things, if you hear something, then most likely is going to be a joke and not something you have to take seriously. Whereas if you are at a university following a course, then ideas and statements presented to you should be more believable. So context, the statement itself, whether it's mundane or whether it's extraordinary, and then your internal epistemology does the mix up of all this and decides, yes, I accept this claim 25% or 50% or 99%, and this is the degree of belief that you attribute to this claim. And that's why not only I don't think, well, it's proven that we don't choose our beliefs, but also I don't think belief is binary. Some people say we believe something or we don't, but I don't think that's true. I think that this this process of integrating a new information is not binary. The result, at least, is not binary. So we receive this information, our internal epistemology treats it, and then the result of this treatment is our belief. So yeah, we need to explain how this works. At least, yeah, 5-6 years old. We can start with very very small aspects of this. We can talk about how we work, how our mind works by comparison or by association. We can explain how our mind arrived at this position, because if you want to talk about cognitive biases, you cannot talk about this without explaining why our mind is shaped as it is, and it's the result of our evolution. So I don't think we can dissociate critical thinking and at least teaching some basics of psychology. Because again, there are too many mistakes in reasoning and too many false ideas that revolve around this misunderstanding of how our mind works. And I think that teaching would clear up a lot of misinformation. Another thing that I think should be taught very at a very early age is what makes a society, because this question is at the base of a lot of things we've been seeing lately with the freedom from masks, freedom from vaccination, all that. We need to understand why we built societies in the first place, why we still have them, what their purpose is, and the constraints that it creates. We know that we needed to organize ourselves as humans for our survival. That's why we are a social species. We need to explain that this is how we thrive. It's because alone there are only so many things we can do, and by sharing tasks inside a society, then we get to grow. And I remember I saw a paper by I think she was a paleontologist, and she said that the first sign of a society organized is not fire, it's not the wheel, it's not tools, it's the fact that we take care of each other. When they found a broken bone repaired, mostly repaired, this is the sign that when we are a group, we want to move all together. We don't give up the sick ones or the ones that are weaker, because they can contribute to the society too. And so when we start taking care of those who are hurt, then that's the first idea that we as a group have to survive, and not just each individual, but the group has to survive. And that's why we have laws. It's because we need to protect the group from the actions of the few. Every law we have is meant to protect the society. And to protect the society, we have to put out boundaries, and that's why we have laws. And that's one of the core concept of our societies is the golden rule. Don't do to others what you wouldn't want to be done to you. And that's one of the very, very basic core value of any society, because pretty much everything and every freedom and every constraint in our societies is a derivative from this idea. So again, we need to teach this understanding, why we are a society, why we need a society, and why it requires for us to have limitations to our freedom. We can have the freedom to shoot guns everywhere because we might injure someone. We can have the freedom to spread disease because that can hurt other people too. And so every freedom has to have some restrictions, and many people don't understand that because as humans we are selfish, so we focus more on the freedoms because that's what we want to do, and we tend to push away the restrictions because that's what we don't want to. And and when people don't understand this concept of society and why it's here, then they tend to push away even more and even further those restrictions, and they focus even more on their freedoms. And that's we see in the US and pretty much everywhere in the world, with this anti-vax and anti-masks and all this nonsense. So yeah, so to come back to the topic of the day, yeah, we have rational thinking, which is the goal, which we know we will never reach because we are flawed thinkers, we are flawed creatures, and so we know we will never be perfect thinkers, but we can practice and learn and try to get as close to it as we want. It's like saying, for example, I want to be a strong person mentally. There's never a point where you can say, okay, now I am strong, because strength is the way you react to events that you face. It's not a state. It's the way you respond to those things that hit you. So you can you can learn to react better to things that impact you a lot, but we're at the end of the day we're still human, and there will be times where we will just collapse or just take hits and don't react because we don't have the strength anymore. So even though we can want to be stronger, and we can try for that, and we can learn how to think more positive, even though I'm not a big fan of these ideas, we can train to focus more on our objectives and the way to reach it. And there are several methods that can help, but at the end of the day, being strong is responding well most of the time and not all the time. Just like being a critical thinker means that you are that you apply critical thinking most of the time and not all the time, because again, we are human and we're flawed. So that's it for today's episode. I think I covered everything I wanted to say. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, everything. If you want to help my channel, you can click in the description. There will be a link to my link tree where you can access my Facebook, Twitter, and also my Amazon wishlist, which has a lot of books. So if you want to help me build this channel, then you can buy me a book to educate myself. And so, in the meantime, I will say, have a nice weekend, everyone. Hope you'll have a good weather, and see you next time.